It's the middle of the night. The temperature outside is far below freezing. Wind is pushing snow across open ground hard enough to erase footprints in minutes. There's no heater, no electric blanket, no insulated nursery, no zipper pajamas, no emergency number to call if something goes wrong. And in your arms is a newborn human baby, an animal so badly designed for cold that even in a modern hospital, one of the first things doctors worry about is whether it can keep its own body warm. Now imagine trying to solve that problem 20,000 years ago, because for most of human history, this was not a rare emergency. This was winter, every single year. And if ancient humans got this wrong, even once, the baby didn't make it to morning. So how did they do it? How did people living through Ice Age cold, with no modern technology, keep the most helpless infant on Earth alive through freezing nights? The answer is not one trick. It's not just fire. It's not just fur. It's an entire survival system built around one brutal fact. Human babies cannot survive cold alone. Start with the biology, because the biology is a disaster. A baby deer can stand within hours. A baby chimp can grip its mother's fur almost immediately. A human newborn can't do either. It cannot walk, cannot cling, cannot regulate its own temperature properly, and loses heat much faster than an adult because its body is small, its skin is thin, and its surface area compared to its weight is enormous. That means heat escapes fast, really fast. Modern neonatology knows this well. Newborn hypothermia is still a major medical danger around the world. Even today, even indoors, even with blankets available, babies can lose body heat at alarming speed. Which means in prehistory, in freezing conditions, a baby left alone for any meaningful amount of time was not just uncomfortable. It was in serious danger. So ancient humans did something modern people have mostly forgotten. They treated warmth as a shared resource. The first line of defense was not architecture. It was another human body. Skin-to-skin contact is often talked about today like it's some gentle parenting trend, but it is much older and much more serious than that. Place a newborn against an adult chest and something remarkable happens. The baby's heart rate stabilizes. Breathing becomes more regular. Crying drops. Temperature regulation improves. In modern medicine, this is called kangaroo care. In prehistory, it was just survival. And the astonishing part is that the adult body actually responds. Studies have shown that a caregiver's chest temperature can shift to help warm or cool an infant. Your body is not just holding the baby, it is acting like a biological heating system. Ancient parents did not need a research paper to know this. They had thousands of generations of experience telling them the same thing. A baby pressed against warm skin lives. A baby set down too long in the cold may not. So babies were carried constantly. Not occasionally. Constantly. Wrapped against the chest, under hides, inside slings made from animal skin or plant fiber, sleeping on someone, feeding on someone, always inside a bubble of shared heat. Among many hunter-gatherer societies documented by anthropologists, infants are held for most of the day and much of the night. That pattern is not cultural decoration. It is what human infancy was built for. And that matters because ancient nights were not just cold. They were long. Without artificial light, winter darkness could stretch for many hours, and that created a second problem. The baby had to stay warm while the adults slept, so they didn't sleep the way you sleep. For most of human history, family members slept together in clusters, not because privacy had not been invented, but because separate sleep in cold environments is inefficient, bordering on insane. A group sleeping close shares body heat, reduces exposed surface area, and creates a warmer microclimate inside the shelter. The infant would be at the center of that thermal system, not off by itself. Near the mother, often between adults or surrounded by layers of bodies, hides, and insulation. A modern baby monitor tells you if the baby is making noise in the next room. Ancient humans solved that by never putting the baby in the next room. And this brings us to one of the biggest misconceptions people have about prehistoric life. They imagine chaos, primitive improvisation, people barely making it through. But when archaeologists study Ice Age shelters, what they find is planning. At sites across Eurasia, including mammoth bone dwellings in what is now Ukraine and Russia, people built enclosed structures that trapped heat far better than open camps ever could. These were not random piles of material. These were engineered winter shelters. Mammoth bones formed frameworks. Hides blocked wind. Grass, moss, and other insulating materials reduced heat loss. Hearths were positioned carefully. Airflow mattered. Space inside mattered. And if you have an infant in that shelter, all of that engineering becomes even more important, because a baby changes how you build. The warmest part of the sleeping space would matter. Drafts matter. Smoke exposure matters. Distance from the fire matters. Too far, the baby gets cold. Too close, the smoke becomes dangerous. That means ancient humans had to manage an indoor environment with extreme precision, using nothing but experience, observation, and inherited knowledge. They were not just surviving winter. They were running a thermal life support system for the most vulnerable member of the group. Fire, of course, was central. But fire alone is not enough. Fire heats unevenly. It dies down. It produces smoke. It requires fuel, and fuel in frozen landscapes is a major logistical problem, which means the warmth keeping that baby alive at 2 a.m. did not begin at 2 a.m. It began weeks earlier. Someone had to collect fuel. Someone had to dry it. Someone had to maintain the hearth. Someone had to repair the shelter. Someone had to prepare bedding materials that stayed as dry as possible. This is the part people miss. A warm baby at night is the end result of an entire group's daytime labor, and dryness is everything. Cold alone is dangerous. Cold plus wet is deadly. So ancient humans layered materials with real intelligence. Furs trapped air. Inner layers stayed softer. Outer layers blocked wind. Bedding had to lift the body off frozen ground because the ground steals heat fast. A baby placed directly on cold earth or even poorly insulated hide would lose warmth rapidly. So infants were likely kept on laps, against chests, inside nests of fur, or elevated on prepared sleeping surfaces. Not because people were sentimental, but because contact with cold ground is a heat leak you cannot afford. Then there is feeding, which is another hidden part of the story. Breastfeeding is not just nutrition. It is temperature control, hydration, immune protection, and night survival all at once. A breastfeeding infant stays close to the mother, which means continued heat sharing through the night. The baby wakes, feeds, settles, and does not have to be moved far from warmth. In cold conditions, that matters enormously. Formula requires containers, safe water, clean preparation, and energy. Ancient humans had none of that. Breast milk came warm, sterile, and perfectly timed. It also helped mothers space pregnancies in many environments through lactational suppression of ovulation, which may have reduced the number of overlapping helpless infants a group had to keep warm at the same time. Nature, for once, was actually helping, but mothers were never doing this alone. That would have been impossible. This is where the grandmother hypothesis and cooperative breeding become part of the winter story. Human beings did not evolve as solitary mothers with occasional support. We evolved in networks: grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, fathers, unrelated group members. All of them could help carry, warm, watch, and protect the child. That matters at night because exhaustion kills judgment. A mother trying to keep a newborn warm while also recovering from childbirth, feeding through the night, and sleeping in dangerous conditions cannot do everything by herself. So the group absorbed the load. Someone tends the fire. Someone repairs the bedding. Someone wakes if the baby cries. Someone takes the infant for a while so the mother can rest. In traditional foraging societies studied in modern times, babies often pass through many arms in a single day. That pattern likely runs deep into our species' past because it solves a real problem. Warmth is easier to maintain when care is shared. And there is another detail here that is easy to miss. Human babies are noisy. That is a problem in predator country, but it is also a problem in freezing air. Crying burns energy, exposes the infant to cold if coverings are disturbed, and signals distress. So ancient caregivers used constant contact to prevent that escalation before it started. A baby held close cries less. A baby fed quickly cries less. A baby sleeping in contact wakes into warmth, not into shock. Modern sleep advice treats separation as normal. Evolution did not. Now, let's be honest. Even with all this, babies still died. Prehistoric life was not gentle. Infant mortality was high. Illness, malnutrition, infection, difficult birth, sudden weather shifts, and simple bad luck took many children. We should not romanticize that. But the reason any of us are here is that enough babies survived. And they survived because ancient humans became unbelievably good at solving this exact problem. They built shelters that trapped heat. They mastered fire. They wore layered clothing. They slept together. They carried infants constantly. They breastfed for years. They shared childcare across the group. They learned, likely through terrible loss, exactly how much cold a baby could take, how close to keep it to the fire, what bedding stayed warmest, how to use body heat, when to wake, when to feed, when to move the child from one set of arms to another. That is not primitive life. That is accumulated pediatric knowledge without writing. And maybe the strangest part is how much of it is still in you. When you pick up a crying baby and press it against your chest, that works because it worked for your ancestors. When exhausted parents want the infant close at night, that impulse did not come from nowhere. When a grandmother reaches for the baby automatically, when a father paces with the child under a blanket, when an older sibling helps soothe an infant, you are watching an ancient system trying to reassemble itself inside a modern world. For freezing nights, ancient humans did not have nurseries. They had something older and in many ways more powerful. They had proximity, shared heat, shared labor, shared responsibility. A baby survived because nobody let that baby drift outside the circle. So the real answer to how ancient humans protected babies during freezing nights is this. They built warmth out of people first and materials second. Fire helped. Fur helped. Shelters helped. But the center of the system, the thing everything else revolved around, was a tiny human body kept alive by never being left alone in the cold. And if that sounds simple, it isn't. It is one of the greatest survival strategies our species ever developed. Because somewhere in the Ice Age dark, while the wind was scraping over bone and hide and the fire was burning low, a newborn slept against another heartbeat and made it to morning. And then did it again. And again. Until eventually, one of those babies was your ancestor.